Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jay Reinke with my next installment of the Reinke Travel Channel. I am here in Lisbon, North Dakota. What brings us to Lisbon is the fact that our daughter and her husband live here. They're expecting their third child, so my wife came down to be part of a baby shower today, and I babysat the two grandsons, and we have had a great time. I want to say a few things about Lisbon. First of all, the name Lisbon is kind of a surprise. We've lived in North Dakota about 30 years, and when you come to North Dakota, you discover all the ancestry is largely Norwegian. That's the biggie. There's a lot of Germans, especially in western North Dakota. There are Russian Germans along what's now Highway 200. There's an Icelandic area up in the northeast part of the state. But you look at the name Lisbon and you go, now that's a surprise. Lisbon, Portugal? I don't know any Portuguese ancestry here in North Dakota. Well, it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that Lisbon is not named after Lisbon, Portugal. Lisbon, North Dakota is named after Lisbon, New York. And the reason is because the gentleman who actually founded the city of Lisbon, his wife, in 1880, I believe it was, Colton was his name, his wife was from Lisbon, New York. Now, what's kind of interesting about that is that if you track down Lisbon, New York, which is, by the way, along the St. Lawrence Seaway, it's on the very northern edge of New York State. In the 1810 census, it was listed as Lisburn, New York. And if that's the case, it was likely named after a town just outside of Belfast, Ireland. So Lisbon, North Dakota takes its name from Lisbon, New York, which in turn probably has Irish roots in its original name. That's kind of an interesting genealogy, I think, in terms of how names go. Some things about Lisbon that I also think are interesting, and I think you'll find interesting, is that soon after it was founded, a gentleman came out. His name was Bryce. And he founded the newspaper here, what was originally the Star. Now it's the Gazette. But the Star newspaper, the gentleman who founded it, he founded also a newspaper in Winnipeg. He ended up in Chicago and developed a regional newspaper for the Midwest, for rural areas. He eventually is the man who brought Boy Scouts from England into the United States. So the man who founded the newspaper here in Lisbon is actually the man largely responsible for bringing Boy Scouts into the United States as a movement. Kind of an interesting history, I think. Something else that's interesting about Lisbon is the fact that the Scenic Theater here claims to be the longest uninterrupted theater in the United States. Even during COVID, they showed their movies outside so people could continue their run of movies. So it claims to be the longest running uninterrupted movie theater in the United States since about 1911, I believe. Some other things that you need to know about Lisbon is when you come, one of the places I would suggest you visit is a place called Ice Cream You Scream. It is a place that has infused flavors in its soft serve ice cream. There's other ice cream things there, and they've got another menu. But the infused flavors are so good. I highly recommend it. Now, I must warn you that if you decide to take your 2-year-old and your 4-year-old grandchildren to Ice Cream You Scream, thinking you're going to have a fun time of ice cream, you will probably end up with a sticky, runny mess. But it's a nice, sticky, runny mess. Just be warned if you bring your grandchildren to Ice Cream You Scream. Something else that I want to tell you about Lisbon, and that's why I'm standing on this bridge. This is a pedestrian bridge that crosses the Cheyenne River. The Cheyenne River is the longest river in North Dakota that stays in North Dakota. It starts near the center of the state, and it traverses to the east from where it begins and then cuts south, and it creates what is one of the most beautiful surprises of North Dakota. And it's one that even a lot of North Dakotans don't know about. The Cheyenne River Valley. The Cheyenne River Valley is a beautiful valley that runs through the southeastern part of the state. And when you're driving across the flat prairies, relatively flat prairies of North Dakota, and you drop down into this wooded valley. It's a huge surprise. And the Cheyenne River, and by the way, Cheyenne is not spelled the way you probably think it's spelled. We are all familiar with Cheyenne. In North Dakota, Cheyenne is spelled with an S. Sheyenne. But the Cheyenne River Valley is like dropping into a little tiny bit of New England in the middle of the plains in North Dakota. Now, I've been to New England, so New Englanders, if you see this video, please don't be offended, because you have beautiful mountains much higher than anything than is in North Dakota. Nevertheless, it's a surprise to drop down into a wooded valley with the Cheyenne River flowing through. It's just beautiful. I encourage you to traverse it, see it, and what's nice is there's a road that runs almost the entire length for large sections of the river, so you get to drive through the valley. Part of it's gravel. One of the places that you'll want to see in the Cheyenne River Valley is Fort Ransom, which is about 18-20 miles here from Lisbon. It's a beautiful little community. It's got a ski hill on one of those wooded slopes and a pedestrian bridge over the river. It's just very, very nice to see. So I strongly encourage you seeing that. Now, I should want to offer a couple of other thoughts. And one is, one of the things you have to be careful of when you come to Lisbon is you might get caught in a vortex. Here's what I've discovered. When I'm driving around Lisbon with my grandchildren, very often when we get to an intersection, all of a sudden my car turns into a circle. We get stuck in a circle, and I call it the vortex. And I tell the kids, we're stuck in a vortex. So be careful. If you're driving around Lisbon, you may get stuck in a vortex for a few minutes as you drive around town. It will send your car into circles. Another thing you might want to do is have coffee at Gordy's, which is a convenience store gas station here. And if you do, you may make the same discovery I made this morning when I was taking my grandson out for a donut. I'm sitting at a little table with farmers sitting in Gordy's, and all of a sudden there's a guy, somebody says something about Reinke, and I said, what? Hello? And the guy's name is Reinke. Turns out there's lots of Reinkes in Lisbon. We're not related. They run farms, but the guy's actually wearing a Reinke Farms sweatshirt, hoodie, zip-up hoodie. And I'm thinking, I need to get one of those sometime. We are not related. I'm from Idaho, and our relatives are in Nebraska, but there's Reinkes in Lisbon. So come on and meet them and stop by Gordy's and see if you can meet Steve Reinke sometime. And finally, let me encourage you, if you happen to get down to this little bridge, just go straight up the bridge 2 blocks and stop by Redeemer Lutheran. My son-in-law, Chris Durham, is the pastor there. His wife Mary is our daughter, and our two grandsons live there, live next door, and soon there will be a granddaughter to join them. So I thank you for the opportunity to share with you more about North Dakota. I'm going to peek over let you look over the river here. There is a little bit of a water that you can see. I don't know if I'm not getting that really well. Sorry, folks, it's a little bit tricky with my cell phone. But a little bit of exposed water through the snow and the ice. You can see that springtime is coming, people. Springtime is coming, though we are scheduled to have another blizzard yet this coming week. We'll see how that works. Nevertheless, welcome to Lisbon, welcome to North Dakota. Hope that you folks have the wonderful opportunity to visit North Dakota and to see this place called Lisbon. Take care, goodbye, and God bless.